Hello viewers, me na Justice Tijan from KID-AFAN and this is your program Salone Discoveries. Today na the 29th of September 2022, and as always, the Ministry of Information and Communication can get them press updates where they can hold every Thursday for inform the public about things and where they happen na the ministries, departments and agencies. Well, today again we there na the Ministry of Information for come witness them weekly Thursday press updates where they can bring to the public. Another with me as we discover today press briefing.
So we left here on Saturday the 17th, as you will all know, of September, departing the shores for participating in the Transforming Education Summit at the 77th UN General Assembly. On the same day as well, the First Lady also departed the shores. She was also attending the funeral ceremony of Queen Elizabeth II, which was a responsibility delegated to her by His Excellency the President. Now, when we arrived on Sunday, we had a bilateral meeting between His Excellency the President and the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. Now, as you would know, or as probably Minister David Sengeh will tell you, His Excellency the President and the UN Secretary General are both co-chairs for this year's Transforming Education Summit. And in that meeting, the UN Secretary General obviously praised the President for his investment in education and many things he has done in terms of peace consolidation and sustaining our democracy. And the President also used the opportunity to brief him and give him details of what we have done to ensure that we continue investing in education. Now, following on from that, on Sunday, on the 19th, which is the Monday, we also had a full engagement with lots of people. We started with the UNAIDS Executive Director, who is Winnie Biayama, on the margins of the 77th UN General Assembly. And in that meeting also, she was full of praise for His Excellency the President for two things. One, because His Excellency the President has done so much in terms of protecting and promoting the rights of girls. Because you have to remember, UNAIDS deals with how do we make sure that adolescent girls in schools are protected from HIV/AIDS. So in that meeting also they discussed on how they can partner with government to see how they can introduce, for instance, in schools, to talk about sexual and reproductive lessons in schools, core textbooks, and also to see how she can partner with the government to eradicate sexual violence in schools as well. From that, on the same Monday, we also had a meeting with the UN Secretary General, because that Monday the 19th was the actual day that the Leaders' Day was commemorating as part of the Transforming Education Summit. So as President is the co-chair of this year's Transforming Education Summit, the President gave a marvelous opening statement. And I'm sure most of you followed through that because it was live streamed and it was also on AYV and also on SLBC as well, the President's speech. But the crux of that speech was just elucidating on most of the things that we've done in terms of investing in education, but also trying to call on the world to make sure that we prioritize education, because it's an investment that when we make it, it's for sustainable development. And from that on, the President was also giving a keynote address, because before we left for the UN, the Secretary General has written to the President, and in that letter he invited the President to become the champion for foundational learning, which is very important, because the UN believes that if we fail to build a stronger foundation for the children, we are missing a huge part of their trajectory in terms of learning. So the President has been a champion, and in the side event that we had, the President gave a keynote statement in the foundational learning session that we had. Now, we are blessed because the Minister of Education is also the co-chair for the advisory committee of the Transforming Education Summit. And he has been co-chairing with the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina J. Mohammed. But I know once the minister comes here, he will give more detail on that. And from there on, we also had a dinner that was hosted by His Excellency the President and the Right Honorable Gordon Brown, who was in absentia. But in that event that we had, it was basically to see how do we mobilize international support, global support for education. And in that as well, the Honorable Minister will give probably more detail in that, because that was also part of the Transforming Education Summit event. On Tuesday, we also had quite an impactful program following on from the Monday. We had a bilateral meeting with the Chief Executive Officer of the MCC, Madam Alice Albright. She has just taken up a new position, and in that meeting, she made commitment of supporting Sierra Leone's compact development, and also the willingness to ensure that we have private sector participation in addressing our challenges in the energy sector. She also updated the President on the different stages of the compact development, which I think is very important for all of us to know, because it's a process, it's not going to happen overnight. But she was there to just tell the President that there are different stages. But what was impressive was that she singled out the team in Sierra Leone who has been working effectively to make sure that we have a compact development. And in response, the President also expressed his commitment towards making sure that we develop the compact, but also that it's going to be a process that's going to be transparent and credible. So at the end of the day, the partnership that's going to born out of the MCC is going to be on the basis of transparency and credibility. And in addition to that, the President also recommitted himself to the scorecard, because the scorecard is very important as part of the MCC processes. And therefore, even though we are doing the compact development at the moment, but also the scorecard is continuing. So the President also used the opportunity to reiterate his commitment to us making sure that we meet the scorecard requirements in challenging times. Now later on that day, the President was also invited by the African Union at the African Union high-level side event, again on transforming education, and the topic was transforming education in Africa. This was organized by the European Union, UNESCO, UNICEF, and WFP, working in partnership with African Union. And in that particular side event also, we had other heads of state. And these included Macky Sall, His Excellency Macky Sall, the President of Senegal, and also the President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. And in the evening hours of Tuesday, the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone also hosted a reception to celebrate our UN General Assembly adoption of Sierra Leone's sponsored resolution that is called A/76/L80, titled International Cooperation for Access to Justice, Remedies and Assistance for Survivors of Sexual Violence. Now, this reception was sponsored by the AFRICEL CEO, Chairman and Founder, Zaid Dalu. Now, you may want to ask yourself the question, why did the First Lady host the reception? Now, firstly, this was the very first time in the history of our country for Sierra Leone to have a sponsored resolution that has been adopted by the UN General Assembly. It's very important and historic. But also, secondly, it was an opportunity for all of us to celebrate and recognize the achievements of President Julius Maada Bio for what he has done in terms of not only national leadership, but also global leadership in protecting and promoting the rights of women and girls in Sierra Leone. Now, we all know what the President has done since he came to office. We remember that he declared the national emergency for rape. We also know that we have enacted Sexual Offences Act to amend the previous act which has been in place to make sure that we have faster trials and tougher sentencing. We have also made sure that we have launched survivors funds, and we have also established one-stop centers and sexual offences model court. So there are a lot of things that we've done which I think was important for us to celebrate at that stage. But also, in addition, the First Lady also has also done many things to complement His Excellency the President. We know the First Lady has been doing extremely well with the Hands Off Our Girls campaign and the sanitary pad distribution. Now, the objective of the resolution that has been adopted has been to make sure that we generate awareness, cooperation, and collaboration at the international level to fight the scourge of sexual violence and remedies for assistance and also for recourse for justice for survivors or victims of sexual violence. Now, Wednesday was the D-Day, because that was also the day when President gave the address at the UN General Assembly, and he spoke about many things. But as you would aware, it was also live streamed, and also we shared the text as well widely. And the importance of that as well, every year, as you would know, a head of state would give a country statement. And in that one, the President spoke lengthily on what we've done for human capital development. We also spoke about our efforts in terms of SDGs, gender, protecting women, and many things. But more importantly also, he used the platform as chairman of CITEN to make sure and reiterate the message that indeed it was high time that all of us worked together to make sure we reform the UN Security Council. And earlier that day, President also participated in an event which was referred to as the Future of Digital Cooperation event, which was organized and hosted by UNDP, UNICEF, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Bank, and you have many other governments which supported that event. The government of Norway, the government of Estonia, and the government of Germany. Now, it's important to know that through the digital public goods as well, we have developed what is called the Open G2P, which is the payment ecosystem to make bulk transfer payment to frontline workers that saved us about $10 million US. And that was the Wednesday. And immediately after that, as usual, President also, there were hundreds of people outside the UN General Assembly who were there, Sierra Leoneans, just to appreciate and recognize what the President has done. So the President visited them, spoke to them, and encouraged them to continue to make sure that we do not only keep our peace, maintain our democracy, but also we support a process which we believe that will transform our country to human capital development. And after our departure on Friday the 23rd, the Sierra Leone Permanent Mission to the UN also held the formal launching of our bid to make sure that we have a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council. And by then we had left, but President also, we had a recorded message in which President spoke to them and thanked them for what we've done. And in that message, President said that if Sierra Leone would have a UN Security Council seat, we will use it to effectively share our success story as a nation of resilience, hope, and society that has successfully transitioned from war to peace, working in partnership with the UN. So, Mr. Minister, I stopped there so far. This was almost like a resume of our events and what we did. And as I take my seat, I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much. I'll combine my time up here. I'll try to wrap up. If you thought that the president's schedule was over hectic, based on what he just, Kaketama just went through, maybe I'll go through what happened with the students and the people who are on that delegation so that you can understand and appreciate what they think about Sierra Leone these days around the world when it comes to education. I think I saw there are some people who are in the room who might have been in the delegation as well, and you can ask questions. There are three things that happened at TESS, the Transforming Education Summit. The first day was the Youth Day, the second day was the Solutions Day, and the third day was the Leaders Day. On the Youth Day, one of our youth representatives, Ms. Mamawa Yaja, was on the main stage panel speaking on intergovernmental dialogue, and I joined her on that session to do that with some other ministers. Jeremiah Taronka, who went to St. Edward's here and who is now studying in the UK, who's the Global Student Prize winner in the whole world, the first Sierra Leonean, spoke about the Youth Declaration on Transforming Education. And on the Solutions Day, the next day. I moderated a panel on accountability and promises to education. The Deputy Minister, Mamusu, spoke on hungry children, so school feeding and the importance of school feeding. Professor Alpha Wuri spoke on financial innovations, how to resource the education space. I engaged on inclusive development, so disability issues. And then Sierra Leone hosted a session with GPE, the Global Partnership for Education, on the Alliance for Foundational Learning. And we brought in all the private sector, all the UNICEF, the head of education, UNICEF, and we're able to do that. Jasper Sembi from DSTI spoke on scaling evidence and EdTech as well. On the Leaders' Day, I won't belabor the point. The president, as the leader, spoke. And then Sierra Leone, I closed the session as well with the DSG and the Assistant Director General to UNESCO. But then there are many other side events. We presented on the side events on early childhood development. We had the students from the university as well. President Bill spoke at the AU event. The students from Sierra Leone, Kumba, Amara from Jala, is the students who represented and spoke on behalf of all African youth in this session. We launched the Education Outcomes Fund, which is the largest outcomes fund for education globally, and the largest outcomes fund in any sector in Africa. $18 million. That started with a $1.5 million seed 3 years ago at State House. We participated in the Center for Universal Education, Brookings Institute session as well. And then the UN Girls Education Initiative. We then participated and hosted in the Lego Foundation Transforming Education Summit, What's Next? And we had people from our team speak as well at the the Center for Global Development on eliminating violence in there. Those were some of the things that the people on our delegation in the education sector did. But we're very busy. All the kids were very tired. We start at 8 a.m. We sleep at 9 p.m. And we did not stop there. Right now there's a delegation at the Ministry of Education who came from TESS because they are already working. And in the meeting they said, everybody said, why Sierra Leone? Why are people saying Sierra Leone, Sierra Leone, Sierra Leone? Apparently every place. But he said, I told them it's because of the leader, it's because of the leadership that's in President Bill. But that's it on TESS. And with all the partners, I do want to thank, for TESS to happen, all of this, I'm sure people who've asked, was paid for by partners. We brought a huge delegation of students, civil society, researchers, people from School Quality Assurance, and Lewilan, UNICEF, UNFPA, Plan International, ONGAI, all paid, World Bank for this trip. Okay, so I'll transition to WAS. This is the best WAS we've seen in a long, long time. And it's great for many reasons. With the free quality school education, we have well over 1 million students who've been added to the classrooms. Most of those are girls in senior secondary school and pupils in pre-primary, because those options did not exist before. I know people like to say what they want to say, but those free access did not exist for people in SSS, or pre-primary was not part of our 6334 curriculum. That's why it's called 6334, not 16334, which we will do. There were 186,000 students who took WAS, who sat. 206,000 registered. That's an increase of 479% between 2018 and 2022. The individual pass rate for papers is 77%. It increased from 0 to 64%. And often people like to say, oh, what's in that pass? Pass is 1 to E8. And E8, to get E8, you have to score 44%. And F9 is 0 to 39%. Credit is 50 to 54%. And so it's important for us to put it in perspective what we mean by pass rates and credit rates. But the credit rate in a single sitting, now I must say, and I've been saying this, not to all man we sit to Wasford University, and it's not a discredit to those individuals. We want great plumbers, we want great mechanical engineers, we want great auto mechanics, we want great people in society who are participating that do not need a 4-year degree program. And that's why government has expanded. Now we have 14 government technical institutes. But before I digress, in the public education system at university, 60% of all of those are paid for by government. So not just is government paying for every student in public school to go to transition. For those who are in university, 60% of them are paid for on SLG by government as well. But that's a small digression. On the 5 credits to go to university in one sitting, that increased by over 1,863%. Over 113,000 candidates in this country can go to university. If they choose, can apply to go to university. The top student passed her 8 subjects. I just had a call with her, and she was very happy and proud of everything that she's done. And she comes from Kenema. We have seen remarkable pass rates for English and math, and people ask why. Well, there are 3.1 million math textbooks in our children's hands. There are 27,000 teaching guides in our teachers' hands. As we speak, there's a teacher training and university training that's happening in Makeni on Lewiland on teachers and on secondary education. We've trained well over 22,000 teachers. It did not happen in 1 year, and I will give a pass rate figure that happened over the last couple of years. You know, in 2016, about 16% of our students passed with a minimum of 5 credits. 2017, 29%. 2018, 18%. 2019, 6%. You know why it became 6%? Because we cracked down on malpractice. Malpractice happens every year, everywhere. In 2019, we cracked down heavy, and everybody remembers the infamous cutting tree incident. Everybody remembers the conversations with the squad. 2020, that went to 5%. Again, we had the communique on malpractice. We made sure that we changed who was invigilating. All this while, we changed the curriculum. All this while, we're training teachers. All this while, there are 3.1 million books in children's hands. All this while, there's radio teaching. Hundreds of hours of radio teaching that our children are listening to. In 2021, 40% of our children passed. I think people heard it, but they did not notice, maybe. And in 2022, 61% of our children have a minimum of 5 credits to go to university. It's called progression and a trend. And it's important that we are able to communicate this. Because if we get caught in say, oh, one person within here, let's have you spell ASF, you get A1. Let's remember that there are 186,000 people, and if that you pick in there, you say let's have you spell A1, tell us say may not go university, may go repeat because it's fine. And if your child spied and your wards engaged in malpractice, I kindly urge fellow citizens to make sure that that child does not go to university. Let that child go and respond to MBSSC and ACC for how they got their grade, and let's bring it to light. If you say you begin spy count you begin to meet today at the car and go to ACC and WAEC, may go show me who I spy to. That's what Sierra Leone should be. That's what I want us to do. But if you sit down, you begin saying, Nazma, wait, study, and do what you do not deserve, you're not doing justice to your children. And I say this because there are people, those teachers who work really hard, those children who work really hard. and you have some people who want to go and discredit them because their own children spied. If your brother and sister not deserving grade, tell them say make chair make count and why would they go for the post the way spy too? Would they pull the results in hand and they'll carry and go ACC? That's what we should do. To end, I want to congratulate all the teachers and all the people who've been working really hard over the last couple of years to ensure that there is increased integrity in the system, to ensure that our children are working hard and studying really hard, and to ensure that we, not to laugh about them for the laugh, we say, oh, look, Ghana, then pass rates na 60%, this is not Salone. Ghana man, they get sense pass we. You want to know the Liberia and Gambia, they get sense pass. We don't do they are in the camp for study. We now we don't picking them not sabi book, that they for fail. Is that what we are saying for ourselves and our children? So it's disappointing when the media propagate that, and then they propagate the negative news about somebody where Peking feel say Peking forget a C6 when Peking get B3. Thank you.
That now what we bring to you for today updates now the Ministry of Information and Communication as the Minister of Education and also other stakeholders and inside the government be there today for updates the public with what's so far done they happen inside the government. Me na Justice AM Tijan, I want to say plenty thank you to my executive producer Dr. Aissatou Kake Jalo and also to my cameraman Mohammed Sky Bangora. So till we meet again, I want to say peace.